What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars meets her match in the most unexpected way? When Jennifer Lopez walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel live set that Tuesday evening, she thought she was coming for a standard promotional interview. What she got instead was a confrontation that would leave audiences stunned and change everything we thought we knew about late-night television. This is the story of how one interview spiraled completely out of control and why Jennifer Lopez ended up being escorted off the stage in front of a live studio audience. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story gets wild. Jennifer Lopez arrived at the El Capitan Entertainment Center looking absolutely radiant. She had just wrapped filming her latest project and was riding high on the success of her recent business ventures. Her team had coordinated this appearance weeks in advance, and everything seemed perfectly orchestrated. The green room was buzzing with the usual pre-show energy, makeup artists adding final touches, while her publicist went over the talking points one more time. Jennifer felt confident and ready to charm the audience with her signature warmth and professionalism. Jimmy Kimmel, meanwhile, was having what his staff would later describe as one of his worst days. Behind the scenes, tensions had been building for weeks. Ratings were down, network executives were breathing down his neck, and he had been receiving criticism for what some called his increasingly desperate attempts at viral moments. His writers had been pushing him to be more provocative, more confrontational, anything to generate the kind of social media buzz that drives viewership in today's landscape. When Jennifer's team submitted their list of approved topics, Jimmy saw it as an opportunity to break free from what he felt were the constraints of typical celebrity interviews. The show opened normally enough. Jimmy delivered his monologue with his usual energy, though those who knew him well could detect an edge that wasn't typically there. He made his way through the standard jokes about current events and celebrity gossip, building toward the moment when he would introduce his first guest. The audience was particularly excited, with many fans having waited hours for tickets specifically to see Jennifer Lopez. The energy in the room was electric as Jimmy began his introduction. Our first guest tonight is a multi-talented superstar who has dominated music, film, fashion, and business for over 2 decades, Jimmy announced with a broad smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Please welcome the one and only Jennifer Lopez. The audience erupted in applause as Jennifer made her entrance, looking stunning in a form-fitting emerald dress that caught the stage lights perfectly. She waved to the crowd with genuine warmth, blowing kisses and taking a moment to soak in their enthusiasm before settling into the guest chair. The first few minutes proceeded exactly as expected. Jimmy complimented her appearance, they chatted about her recent projects, and Jennifer shared a funny story about her kids that had the audience laughing. But those who were paying close attention might have noticed that Jimmy seemed restless, checking his cards more frequently than usual, and glancing toward his producers in the wings. The easy banter that typically characterized these interviews felt slightly forced, as if both host and guest were waiting for something to shift. That shift came when Jimmy decided to veer off script. Instead of following the pre-approved questions about her upcoming projects, he leaned back in his chair with a smirk that immediately put Jennifer on alert. "So, Jennifer," he began, his tone taking on a sharper edge, "I have to ask about something that's been all over social media lately. There seems to be this pattern with your relationships where things start out very public and then end very publicly. Some people are saying it's all calculated for publicity. What's your response to that?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a moment before she composed herself, her years of media training kicking in. "I think people who know me understand that I'm someone who loves deeply and openly," she replied diplomatically. "I don't live my life based on what strangers on the internet think they know about my personal relationships." But Jimmy wasn't satisfied with the polite deflection. He sensed weakness and decided to press further. "But come on, Jennifer," he continued, leaning forward now with the aggressive posture of a prosecutor. "You have to admit the timing is always interesting. New relationship goes public right around album releases, movie premieres, business launches. It's almost like there's a publicity team orchestrating the whole thing. The audience began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the light-hearted celebrity chat they had expected, and Jennifer's body language was becoming noticeably tense. Jennifer took a deep breath, her professional mask still in place, but her eyes flashing with the first hints of genuine anger. "Jimmy, I came here tonight to talk about my work and connect with my fans. I didn't come here to be ambushed with tabloid conspiracy theories." Her voice remained controlled, but there was steel underneath the silk. "If you want to have a conversation about my career, my music, my films, I'm happy to do that. But I'm not going to sit here and defend my personal life to someone who clearly has already made up his mind." Jimmy's response revealed the calculated nature of his attack. Rather than backing down or apologizing for overstepping, he doubled down with the kind of aggressive questioning that his producers had been encouraging. "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it?" he said, spreading his hands as if he were being reasonable. "You want to control the narrative. You want to only talk about the sanitized, publicity-approved version of Jennifer Lopez. But your fans deserve honesty. Don't they? They deserve to know when they're being manipulated." The word manipulated landed like a slap. Jennifer's composure cracked visibly as she sat up straighter in her chair. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice rising slightly. "Are you seriously accusing me of manipulating my fans? These are people who have supported me for decades, who I genuinely care about and respect. How dare you suggest that I would use them or lie to them?" The audience was now completely silent, sensing that they were witnessing something far beyond the usual talk show drama. Jimmy seemed energized by her reaction, as if her anger validated his approach. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," he continued, his tone becoming more condescending. "Look at the pattern. Look at how conveniently your personal life always seems to align with your professional needs. It's impressive from a business standpoint, but let's call it what it is." He paused for effect, clearly enjoying the discomfort he was causing. "It's all brand management, isn't it?" Jennifer stood up from her chair so abruptly that it startled everyone in the studio. "You know what, Jimmy? I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've sat through thousands of interviews with journalists, talk show hosts, and media personalities who actually know how to do their jobs professionally. But this," she gestured around the set, "this isn't journalism. This isn't entertainment. This is just cruel for the sake of being cruel." Her voice was steady now, powered by righteous indignation rather than defensive anger. "You want to know what's really manipulative? Using your platform to tear down a guest who came here in good faith. You want to know what's calculated? Deciding that ambushing someone is more important than having a real conversation. You're not exposing anything except your own lack of class and professionalism." Jimmy tried to regain control of the situation, but his attempt at damage control only made things worse. "Jennifer, please sit down. I think you're overreacting here. These are legitimate questions that your fans want answered." But Jennifer was no longer interested in playing along with his game. "My fans?" she repeated incredulously. "You don't speak for my fans. You don't know anything about my fans or what they want. What they want is respect, authenticity, and genuine connection. What you're offering is cheap gossip disguised as legitimate inquiry." The studio audience was completely captivated now, unsure whether to applaud Jennifer's defense of herself or remain silent out of awkwardness. Some were pulling out their phones to record, sensing that they were witnessing television history in the making. Jimmy's producers were frantically signaling from the wings, but he seemed determined to see this confrontation through to whatever bitter end awaited. "I think we need to take a commercial break," Jimmy announced, but Jennifer cut him off immediately. "No, we're not taking a break. You started this conversation, so let's finish it. You want to talk about patterns? Let's talk about your pattern. How many female guests have you treated this way? How many times have you used your show as a platform to tear down women under the guise of asking tough questions. Her words hit, their mark with surgical precision. Jimmy's confident smirk faltered as Jennifer continued her counterattack. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you save this kind of aggressive, disrespectful treatment for women who won't just sit there and smile while you try to humiliate them for ratings. Is that the pattern we should be discussing?" Jimmy tried to interrupt, but Jennifer was on a roll now, fueled by years of dealing with exactly this kind of treatment from men in positions of power. "You talk about honesty and authenticity, but what's honest about ambushing a guest? What's authentic about pretending to care about my fans while you're actively disrespecting them by disrespecting me? They didn't come here to watch you try to tear me down. They came here because they love and support me, and you're using that against both them and me." The confrontation had now completely overtaken the show. What was supposed to be a light, promotional interview had become a masterclass in how power dynamics play out in public spaces. Jennifer had transformed from defensive guest to commanding presence, while Jimmy found himself increasingly backed into a corner of his own making. The audience could sense that something fundamental was shifting, that they were watching not just an argument, but a reckoning. Jimmy made one final attempt to salvage his position, but his words only poured gasoline on the fire he had started. "Look, Jennifer, I respect you as an artist, but you're being way too sensitive about this. If you can't handle a few direct questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, and it was exactly the wrong thing to say to someone who had just eloquently dismantled his entire approach. Jennifer's response was swift and devastating. "Sensitive?" she repeated, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. "Let me tell you what's sensitive, Jimmy. What's sensitive is a host who's so insecure about his own declining relevance that he has to attack his guests to feel important. What's sensitive is someone who mistakes cruelty for courage and thinks that tearing people down makes him look strong." She began to gather her things, her movements deliberate and dignified despite the chaos of the moment. "I've worked with everyone from Barbara Walters to Oprah Winfrey, people who know how to ask difficult questions with intelligence and respect. What you're doing isn't brave or groundbreaking. It's just sad, and frankly, it's beneath both of us." Jimmy's face was flushed now, his carefully constructed television persona crumbling in real time. "You can't just walk out in the middle of a live show," he protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Jennifer turned to face him one final time, and when she spoke, her words carried the weight of someone who had found her limit and decided to enforce it. "Watch me," she said simply, "and while you're watching, maybe think about whether this is really the legacy you want to build. Whether attacking women who come here to promote their work and connect with their fans is really the hill you want to die on. Because I promise you, Jimmy, this isn't hurting me nearly as much as it's hurting you." The studio fell into stunned silence as Jennifer began walking toward the exit. Jimmy, realizing that his show was falling apart on live television, made a desperate attempt to stop her. "Jennifer, please, let's just finish the interview. We can move on to other topics." But Jennifer didn't even turn around. "We're finished, Jimmy. This interview is over. And honestly, so is any respect I might have had for this show." Security, who had been monitoring the situation from the beginning, now found themselves in the unprecedented position of having to escort a major celebrity off a talk show set. But this wasn't a case of removing someone who was out of control. Instead, they were protecting someone's right to maintain their dignity in the face of unprofessional treatment. As Jennifer walked toward the exit, several audience members began to applaud, a slow clap that gradually built into genuine appreciation for her refusal to tolerate disrespect. Jimmy tried to address the audience, to somehow salvage the remainder of his show, but the damage was complete. "Well, folks, that was certainly unexpected," he said with a forced laugh that fooled no one. "We'll be right back after these messages." But everyone in that studio knew that nothing would be the same after what they had just witnessed. The cameras stopped rolling, but the impact of those few minutes would reverberate far beyond the walls of that television studio. As Jennifer reached the exit, she paused for one final moment and looked back at the audience that had supported her throughout the confrontation. "Thank you," she said simply, addressing them directly rather than speaking through Jimmy's show. "Thank you for understanding that respect matters, that dignity matters, and that no one should have to tolerate being treated poorly just because they're in the public eye." The aftermath was immediate and intense. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were spreading across social media platforms. Viewers who had witnessed the exchange live were sharing their shock and admiration for Jennifer's handling of the situation. The hashtag began trending as people debated the ethics of ambush journalism in entertainment interviews. What had started as Jimmy's attempt to create a viral moment had indeed gone viral, but not in the way he had intended. The incident exposed something larger about the entertainment industry, and the way female celebrities are often expected to smile and accept disrespectful treatment in the name of promotion and publicity. Jennifer's refusal to play along with that dynamic sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond, inspiring discussions about boundaries, respect, and the responsibility that comes with having a platform. So there you have it, the complete story of how Jennifer Lopez turned the tables on Jimmy Kimmel and walked off his show with her dignity intact. What do you think about her response? Was she right to refuse to tolerate that kind of treatment, or should she have stayed and finished the interview? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button for more behind the scenes stories from Hollywood, and let me know what other celebrity confrontations you'd like me to cover next.